So the Biden administration, in all of its wisdom and knowledge, decides to punish those with good credit. If you got a good FICO score, you're not going to like this. You've worked hard to get that score up, get that point where you can, get stuff on credit without being absolutely screwed. So you got that good credit score. You're going to pay a higher mortgage payment than somebody with less credit score, because the Biden administration is saying, hey, in order to get people low income and bad credit, we're going to fund your loan. Yes, by having those with better credit, subsidize you. That's literally what we're doing. In order to get people in that have not worked on their credit, that don't have a down payment, we're going to take money in the form of higher payments to those. We're literally going to punish those who've worked their asses off, got their credit, got their down payment, got their piece of the American dream. Those others who haven't been doing those things, we're going to give them a hand up, and you're going to pay for it. Everybody out there with good credit score, you're going to pay for it. That's literally what we're doing. Let's get into it. I had a bunch of people send me this one. I don't cover much real estate anymore, but it's not because I don't want to. It's just that the audience doesn't really demand it. But something like this, we're going to get into this because this is so ridiculous. We got to talk about it. Biden administration is attempting to punish people who've paid their bills on time. You paid your bills on time. Why? You get a better deal if you didn't. I mean, literally, you're going to have loan officers. Well, if you really want to get a house, get that credit score down. Get that credit score down. It's going to save you money in the long haul. Trust me. I'm a loan officer. All right. That's the result. The Federal Housing Finance Agency's 2023 alterations set to take effect on May 1st. This is literally the new reality moving forward. Bad credit? It's okay. Everybody else has worked their whole lives. They're going to subsidize you. Thank Mr. Biden and that administration for that. The new Biden enforced federal rule will levy an additional fee on those with high credit scores. Let me read that to you again. They'll levy an additional fee on those with high credit scores in an effort to subsidize those with riskier credit looking to purchase houses. So everybody who's worked their asses off is now going to be funding those who've just been, it'll work out. It'll be fine. Well, we'll just figure this out. Oh, we can buy a house now. During the crash of the Great Recession, 2008, you know why so many people gave up homes? Well, because they didn't have to qualify for them. They didn't have the income to purchase them, but they said they did. They were able to do that. These were all ways to get a loan. Those with down payments, they were the first. Without down payments, they were the first to give up homes, right? Because they've got no stake in the game. None of their own money is in a deal. Why not? And if you've already proven that you can't handle a payment with bad credit and not having any assets, if you've already proven that you don't deserve a home and you get one, what do you think? What do you think the statistics on those homes being purchased under this type of program are going to look like? I mean, how many times do we have to go through it? How many of these revolutions? Well, we didn't learn from that one. I guess we'll learn on this one. I mean, those with credit scores of 680 or above are expected to pay an additional $40 per month more than those with lower scores on home loans of around $400,000, anywhere between $40 and $120 a month, depending on a bunch of stuff, right? So it is more money. It's not a ton more, but if you think about spreading this out to all those good borrowers out there, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get more people into housing, and especially those who've been at the entry level, because housing has become so expensive. But you don't do that by subsidizing somebody's bad behavior with somebody who's paid all their bills and all their dues on time. You don't do that. What you do is you teach folks how to get their credit score up to becoming part of the system that already works. Because since 2009, we've had legislation put in place that makes it difficult to get a home that you shouldn't be able to get, that you can't afford. There are lending guidelines in place for that. This violates exactly that. This violates that system, and it's just going to go sideways. It's just going to go sideways, and you're going to have a bunch of people. It'll never get talked about in the media. You'll have a bunch of people get homes with this program. You'll have a little bit of a dip in the market. And when that happens, people will have negative equity. And if they need to sell their house, they're not going to be able to. They're going to have to do a short sale, or they'll go through foreclosure. And more likely, they'll just let it go back to the bank because they've got zero skin in the game. And when you repeatedly expose people to zero skin in the game, guess what happens? Anything goes. There's no rules. Doesn't matter, because why play by the books? I've been handed a loan. I'll take it. Sure. Why not? Don't expect me to make the payments. Fees will be highest for those making down payments of 15 to 20%. That's the magic spot. If you're making 15 to 20%, they're going to pay the most. So if you're over 20%, probably not as much. But 15 to 20%, that is a sweet spot where a lot of people, they make that down payment because they can get conventional financing, or, a 15% down, you're still 5 shy of conventional financing at 20%, right? Little bit of a bump in the market, or you down pay a little bit or make those payments and your principal gets reduced. You can get conventional financing on that pretty darn quickly, right? So, the more you put down, the better off you're going to be, unless you're in the Biden program, which is nothing down, shitty credit. Yeah, let's buy a house. That's literally what we're talking about. And, let's buy a house. And those guys over there that have worked their whole lives at paying everything off on time, yeah, they're going to fund this for us. They're going to subsidize this bad boy for us. So the changes do not make sense. Penalizing borrowers with larger down payments and credit scores will not go over well, he explained. You think? Really? Yeah. Like, as you're hearing this, what are you thinking? You probably haven't, I don't know if you've seen this topic before, but I had a bunch of people send it to me and I'm like, okay, even though that's a real estate one, I got to cover that because this is ridiculous. Another loan originator told the New York Post, it's going to be a challenge trying to explain to somebody that says, I worked my whole life for high credit and I've put a lot of money down, and you're telling me that's a negative now. That's a negative. And it is. It's a negative. You'd get a better deal if you had no credit and you had no resources, meaning no down payment. You get a better deal. And also it'd be paid for by that other guy who's worked his whole life to get this all dialed in and lined up so that his life works in the right direction, instead of failure, which is no credit, no savings ability, no ability to save, all of those things. You got to encourage people to get that job, better yourself. That whole part of the American dream. That's why so many people literally try and break into our country every day, day in and day out. Because if you come to America and you somehow get in the system, which isn't that hard, if you're one of the millions of illegal immigrants, you can come here, you can start working your ass off. And by the end of your course of your life, you will have made a better life for yourself. You just will. That's how the system should be working, but it's not. Instead, we've got this other nonsense where, bad credit's fine. Yeah, we'll square you away. Don't worry about it. Nah, it's people that shouldn't have a house that are going to get a house. And guess what? That will go down. That will go down in history as bad decision. Well, here's what we learned from that. Yeah, the default rate was 45 times the, default rate of standard originations. Like, didn't see that one coming. How much of a down payment they have? None. In fact, we gave them points towards their, we just, threw them a bunch of money, and how was their credit? It was crappy. All the better. Get a better deal in America now if you got credit, crappy credit. The author of this report goes on to say, sounds exactly like something the Biden administration would support. Having people who haven't worked their whole life towards a goal basically subsidized by those who are self-sufficient, that understand the drill, that work hard to get ahead, make something better for themselves, make something better for their lives and their future generations. Let's just subsidize these guys over here that are just kind of off doing who knows what, buying a new car every year, can't afford it, don't know. Now there is the whole affordability issue. Some people can't afford to buy a house, Well, I mean, if you can't afford to buy a house, maybe you shouldn't be buying one. I mean, the whole reason we have income and debt levels and down payment is so that you can figure out a way to buy a house. Lenders go, work their way backwards to help you get into a house, but you got to have a JOB and you've got to have some kind of credit in order to get the best deal. Now you don't. What's that going to do to the housing market? Now, it's certainly not going to help it, right? So the author goes on to say another absurd Biden administration policy to promote equity. This does not promote equity. This just does not do that. What this is going to promote is some people getting into housing that they shouldn't, that's going to go sideways on them. They're going to have a foreclosure on their record. And there's that. And it's going to cost you and I, the taxpayer, that money, right? The Biden administration has worked hard to prioritize policies that actively mock common sense and rationality. That's exactly what's happened, right? For example, there are recent efforts to destroy women's sports under the auspices of Title IX, which ostensibly was to promote and encourage women's sports. If you're born a man and you went through puberty as a man, you should not be competing against women in sports. Period. Done. It's just, it's so ridiculous. If you have good credit, you should get a cheaper mortgage. If you have terrible credit, then work on your credit, get it up, and then you can get a better rate on your mortgage. That's just how this game works. But with the Biden administration, all rules are off. Hey, all bets are off. So similarly, this change to mortgage rules is entirely backwards. Instead of providing further incentives for lower credit score buyers to improve their financial health, Biden wants to punish those who've handled their finances properly. He's going to have them support the others who don't. There's nothing wrong with wanting to encourage more first-time home buyers, but not by punishing those who've worked hard to ensure they did things the right way. We're taking away from everybody doing the right way, the right way things. We're leveling the field. The lowest common denominator is just coming to crap. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to have a job. You don't have to have credit. We'll help you get a house anyway. We're just lowering the common denominator to just crap across the board. Everybody's going to be able to get a house. Well, once the default rate comes out on this kind of stuff, guess what? Yeah, I don't think we're going to fund any more of those loans. That the funding for funding for those types of loans, it's just kind of dried up. Do you got any more of those? No, not so much. No, but it'll go away very quietly. So you've got the big rollout here. Hey, look what we've provided for you. Didn't work your whole life. Didn't work your ass off. Didn't get that credit up. In fact, you had terrible credit and you spent most of your time just goofing around playing Xbox and smoking weed. Huh. Well, here's a deal for you. We'll have those other guys, basically buy down your mortgage rate. It's similar to Biden's efforts to forgive student loan debts, punishing those who worked hard to repay their loans and basically saying, hey, here's 10, 20 grand. Is that ever going to go through? I don't think it is, right? I just don't. I think that's bogged down. And I don't think it's going to be part and parcel of a bigger package. But I know at one time it was 10 grand or 20 grand. I don't think that's ever going to go through. This is what equity leads to in practice, interfering in normal processes with comical, nonsensical changes that, of course, don't work. And that's the situation you've got going on here. You've got policy that literally directs people to default on their mortgages, because why wouldn't they? You gave them one they didn't deserve. They have no skin in the game. Why wouldn't they the minute things just don't work out? And oftentimes in real estate, I don't know if you've noticed, they don't work out. Market goes up, it comes down, it goes up and comes down. You might say that it's gone up a lot more recently than it has gone down, and that is true. But I lived through the Great Recession as a real estate guy owning two companies. That was a long down period. That was a bugger to work through. That was not fun. That was not fun at all. I worked for years just to kind of, keep things together, to hold what little I had left after a big divorce and massive payments together. got through on the other side. And so if you just don't quit and you just keep going, you keep grinding it out and you don't ever say, you know what? F it. I'm going to McDonald's. They can take half of that paycheck and pay to my ex-wife. Yeah, but then you kind of give up on everything and you don't have the ability to regroup when the market does get better. So you just got to grind and go through it. In that, in that scenario, I should have just given up and let my credit just go sideways and don't worry about it. Hey, somebody's going to help me out buying a house down the road. It shouldn't work like that, because a house is a massive investment and you got to be serious about it and you got to work towards getting that down payment. And that's part of the whole process, right? It's committing to doing something that's going to benefit your life long term. And if you're not willing to do those things, you don't deserve a house. Just like these folks don't deserve a house unless they've worked on their credit, unless they've worked at scratching together a down payment. That's my opinion. So this new stuff from the Biden administration, I mean, don't expect it to be around long term, but it's a really good example of how, government is interfering basically with business and is just, let's just try this out. Power to the people, right? Power to the people. It's just terrible policy. It's awful policy. Anybody in real estate is going to tell you that. Not because we're trying to be self-serving, but because it simply doesn't make sense. It's backwards. It's wildly backwards. But this is 2023, and it seems like this is what we're doing. All right. Yeah, I think I've beaten this one to death. Let's just say I'm a no-go on this new policy. How about that? Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this content with friends, family, whomever it is. Thank you so much for being part of the real estate. I almost said real estate podcast. Thanks so much for being part of News for Reasonable People. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.